great night for the Mets. Bad night for the Yankees. Where do you want to start, Don? Yankees or the Mets?
Well, I wouldn't be overly concerned about the Yankees.
Well, I'll give you one thing to be concerned about. They have a legitimate problem against left-handed starters.
It seems to be.
Patrick Corbin had the worst ERA of any qualified pitcher in baseball, and he shut them down on 2 hits, no runs for 6 innings. That's concerning because you're going to see an abundance of lefties in the postseason. You just are. But go ahead.
I was going to say, and when you take a look at the schedule and you're going up against the Nationals and the Orioles are in L.A. taking on the Dodgers, you're thinking this is where we're going to be able to widen our lead and not give a game back.
Right. Now you gave a game back
last night.
Yep. And the Mets got a game back. So they go into Arizona. They have a big 6-run inning, and they run away with it. Manaea once again pitched very well, ran out of gas at the end. And that's a nice win. Now, they started off the Padres series with a win as well. Let's see them take the next 2 and then really make a statement. I guess you could live with taking 2 out of 3, but I don't think it does much for you catching up on them. But the Braves won in extra innings. And right now we're at the point, Don and Peter, they can't afford to lose any more games to the Braves. So they're 3 games back in the loss column. So the Braves are playing the Twins. The Mets are playing the Diamondbacks, who have been red hot. And the Mets won the first game, so you have to give them great credit for that. Also in the game, Pete Alonso hit a home run. And I think most Met fans would agree that Pete Alonso has not had a great season. But you look up, and after that home run yesterday, Donnie has 28 home runs. And it's not a great season. So you can make the argument he's going to get anywhere from 35 to 40 home runs in an off season for him. And that home run, the 28th of the year, ties him with Mike Piazza for the 3rd most in Met history. And it just brings up that question once again, which is going to hang over this organization through the offseason until he signs with somebody. Are you bringing this guy back, and are you giving him the money that he wants?
He and Iglesias could make it.
Well, those are 2 different questions. You may want him back, but at the right price. And I think every Met fan realizes that if he wants north of $30 million, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you can get him at $25 million, well, then I think everybody would love to be able to have him come back. I think it's about the price. Now, we've seen Boris clients not get what they were looking for. Right?
Recently,
there were, 4 or 5 of them during this past offseason. Snell was going to get big money, and he ends up signing in San Francisco late and got hurt and really stumbled out of the box because of that. Chapman in San Francisco as well, similar situation. Bellinger. So these guys didn't. Montgomery's right on the top of the list, Michael. Won a World Series with Texas. Thought he was going to cash in big and didn't. So Boris has gotten it wrong. So if the feeling was going into this past offseason, you're going to be a $40 million player, I think that's off the table now. How much is somebody willing to give him off of what has been, for Pete, a very pedestrian type of season? However, to other people, that may be the case, but is he more valuable to the Mets? As you mentioned, he tied Mike Piazza for the 3rd most home runs. And at some point, if he were to come back with the Mets next year, he will pass David Wright and Darryl Strawberry. And he has gone on a trajectory of being the greatest offensive player this franchise has ever had. So is that valuable to the Mets? Is it valuable to their fan base to say, all right, listen, he may not fit in the whole analytic thing. He may be not worth as much money as we're paying him, but for us, having a guy who started his career here, has a chance to put up some big time numbers as a Met, being a forever Met, something for us, so maybe we'll pay a little bit more than other teams. I could see, especially with Cohen as the owner, Michael, that might be a direction that I would like to see them go.
Well, Howie Rose said it best yesterday. If it's a short-term deal, I think the Mets would be all in. This guy, correct me if I'm wrong, he's 30 years old, right? Mm-hmm. So you think he's going to age well where you can give him a 7-year deal. Now, I think he's going to want about $30 million a year. So if you're the Mets, would you give him 3 years at 90? The one thing I don't like, and I've read this in a number of places, is that this is one of those things where Steve Cohen could step in and say, listen, we got to sign him. That would be the wrong move. He turned over baseball operations to David Stearns. David Stearns has done a nice job so far, and you got to trust his evaluation. If he doesn't think that Pete Alonso fits on this team, then it doesn't matter if he's a favorite of Met fans. You know what Met fans like? Met fans like winning. Met fans will like going to the playoffs. Met fans will like winning a World Series. Doesn't matter who the player is. They can't fall in love with one guy. If the guy you hired and gave all that money to be the architect of the team doesn't feel that Pete Alonso is the right fit, then I'm sorry, Steve Cohen can't butt in and go, you know what, the fans like him, let's keep him.
Well, but it depends on what you mean by right fit. If you're telling me I think I can do better at first base over the next 3-4 years than Pete Alonso, I can find a better player that fits in what we're trying to do to win, then I think people can accept that. If it's fitting in our salary structure, well, that's where the fans are going to be like, well, wait a minute, I thought Steve Cohen is supposed to not care about things like that. So if Stearns goes to Cohen and says, listen, I think we can get a similar player cheaper. All right, similar player. Are you saying a better player or a similar player? I'm saying a similar player, and I think from a salary structure standpoint, I think we'd be better off if I can go out and get a guy for a lot less years and a lot less money that could do the same thing. Then Cohen could say, well, all right, but you know what? He's not Pete Alonso, and I've got the money, and I don't care. I'm willing to go a little bit more financially. Then I think it's okay for Cohen to step in.
But then you're really stepping in the way of what Stearns is doing, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not just about money. If it was just about money, then he could go out and get anybody he wants. But baseball has put together a collective bargaining agreement where there are a lot of negatives for going over that final tax, including draft position. And you say you want to build a Dodger system where, ready to go with another player when somebody leaves. You're not going to be able to do that if you keep going over that tax. It's going to cost you international money. It's going to cost you draft position. And so it's not that he can afford anybody. Obviously he's going to make a run at Soto, but you want him to make a run at Soto after the Verlander contract goes off, after the Scherzer contract goes off, so that you don't have to go over $300 million. But if you're going to give $30 million to Pete Alonso and you don't want to, and you feel that you can get a first baseman for 10, then you're really playing against what Stearns wants to do.
No, I get that, and that's why I said if it's strictly financial, or it's something beyond financial where it's going to affect the team long term, then I'm with you. I don't think Cohen should step in. But if he's going to spend it someplace else, if they're going to go over the threshold anyway, or if there's a way to make it work where it doesn't go over the threshold, like let's say the money does come down. Like let's say Stearns is just not a fan of Alonso, doesn't think he fits the kind of baseball team the way he looks like as a baseball team should be built.
Right.
And then goes out and gives the same money to somebody else who he happens to like, and the salary structure turns out to be exactly the same, well, then I can understand Cohen saying, well, I get what you're saying, but we like Pete, and we're going to keep Pete. Now, of everything you said financially wise, I guess that's Cohen should not step in because that can do damage. But if I can get Alonso for the same money as somebody that Stearns would rather have, and it just is a strict baseball philosophy decision, well, then I think Cohen should have a say.
But then again, you're wrong, because what if Stearns goes, I want a great first baseman. I want a great defender. I'd rather have a left-handed bat rather than the right-handed bat. Then, Steve Cohen could have his favorites, but he's got to step back on this. He's got to let the guy run the team. Steve Cohen's job during this offseason, go and blow away Juan Soto. That's it. Otherwise, butt out.
Okay. But, I don't think Pete's a hack either.
No, he's not.
Can you find a better defender? Yeah, you can find a better defender. Can you find a better hitter? Well, it really depends on what Pete Alonso you're talking about. He's having an off year where he's still going to hit over 30 home runs. Do you know that the guy that you're going to bring in are going to put up similar numbers to Pete at the height? I mean, that's debatable. I don't know. Who's available, Michael? You might know better than I do. Who's the first baseman out there that you feel you can get that is guaranteed to be better than Pete Alonso?
Well, I know Christian Walker is going to be a free agent. He's older, but you might get him for 2 or 3 years. He's a really good player.
But Pete also brings a lot of other things to the table as well. I mean, this is somebody that it feels like the fans like. The players seem to like him, and there is something missing with this Mets franchise of not having that guy that has been here forever. going back to my Ed Kranepool rant, take a look at the guys he's going to pass home run-wise or potentially could pass. He's tied with Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza has his number retired. He's not a forever Met. He established himself as a Hall of Famer way before he came to the Mets and then didn't finish his career with the Mets. David Wright had his career shortened because of the bad back. Darryl Strawberry, who's number one, well, Darryl Strawberry, was a forever Met until he went and signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers and then won championships with the Yankees and played in San Francisco. And, so they're kind of missing that. Is there value to that, Michael? Well, Peter, is there value to that where maybe I can be a little bit better here financially, a little bit better here glove-wise, maybe a little bit better potentially offensively, but in a sport where you still have to market yourself over 162 games, you still have to sell tickets, there's still something to entertaining your fan base over a season that what Pete Alonso represents might be worth a little bit here or there.
I believe that's worthwhile consistently across sports. I believe the Giants should have found a way to keep Saquon Barkley. Like they don't have a guy at quarterback who's particularly meaningful. I think it's meaningful.
But football's different because you don't have the day in, day out of a regular season like you do with baseball.
But it's a great comp by you, Peter, because he's Saquon Barkley.
Hey, except
Barkley's probably better.
Saquon's better and a little bit more beloved by the Giant fan. However, what I'm trying to say is the thing that makes Pete complicated is, Michael, I don't know if the fans have that same true love for him. I've never been able to gauge how they actually feel.
But I've been making the Barkley comparison with Alonso for months. And the big difference is I've got a hard cap in football. I have to make heartless decisions. I have to only think with my brain because it's a hard cap, and he's been injury prone, and I can't afford to think about the fan base and their love for him because I've only got 8 to 9 home games, and I'm selling those games out anyway, and it's about trying to build a champion, and I have to think about the finances. You have to think about the finances in baseball to a certain extent. But at the same time, you'd have a lot more wiggle room where you can give out gold watches, that you can give a little bit more to somebody that you don't want to because it's not a hard cap sport. Yes, you can lose some international money. Yes, you can lose draft pick status. But it's not like it is in the NFL where you literally cannot fit that salary in at the expense of something really valuable in other places that are way more important than running.
But you all agree they could have fit him in. I mean, there's ways to make the salary cap dance, and I think that what Steve Cohen has to do is play the role of John Mara. John Mara wanted him back. He gave in to Joe Shane. And as Peter said at the time, that's putting Joe Shane on the hot seat. The easy thing would be to bring him back because your owner wants him back. If Steve Cohen wants Pete Alonso back and David Stearns doesn't, you got to let David Stearns have his say. And then if it doesn't play out, then you have that over his head.
Right, but in the case of the Giants, I mean, they said it during the Hard Knocks. They went out and signed 2 offensive linemen and traded for Burns. They would not have been able to do all 3 of those things if they brought Barkley back, at least according to them. Where, all right, maybe I'm not going to lose out on Juan Soto if I give Alonso a contract. You're Steve Cohen. Now, you might have to go beyond what you want to do from the luxury tax standpoint, but it's not as harsh as it is in football where you've got to get under that cap or you're letting players that you don't want to let go. Again, I don't know how far from the luxury tax they will be or not be, depending on the $1 million here or there. But I think Cohen can get involved from a heart standpoint a lot more than Shane and Dable were able to do it with Saquon Barkley. It has to be all brain in the NFL. At least baseball, you do have a little bit of wiggle room to think with your heart.